All right, we are live. This is June 2nd, 2022. This is our weekly design and user experience meeting. And we're going to go around and do some quick introductions. I will start. My name is Jen Lampton. I am joining from Oakland, California. And today I'm working on a Google Analytics module update. So that'll come out hopefully before the end of the day. Robert, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Robert Lang, web folder on the internet, coming to you from Altadena, California.
I'm Tim Erickson. Oh, we lost our guest. I'm Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim, and I am in Deerwood, Minnesota. Yeah, and we'll leave it at that. Let's jump right into things. But our guest of honor disappeared.
Hopefully he'll be back.
Yeah.
So next, or I should say the only thing currently on our agenda is issue number 5077, which we just want to celebrate, has been merged into Vector 122. I think we might have mentioned that in the last design usability meeting, but I'm announcing it one more time because I'm going to remove this from the repeating template so we won't see it again. But yeah, that's the only thing that we had on today's agenda. If our guest comes back, this is someone who contacted us on Twitter and said, "Hi, I'm a designer. I want to help with open source. Where can I be most valuable?" And I pointed him at a list of issues tagged with design. And he said, "Oh, it looks like there's a lot of user experience issues in here too." And I said, "Yes, we have plenty of user experience issues." And he did a review of some of the issues. He fired up a demo site. He did some sort of higher level review of the software as a whole. And I think he's coming back to us with some recommendations that would be not necessarily specific improvements for individual issues, but sort of big picture goal thinking, which I think could be really valuable to us. I know we sort of inherited what Drupal had, and we've been trying to make little improvements here and there. And sometimes we miss some of that like cohesion that I think could be really valuable. And I think designers, and especially user experience or user interface designers or user interaction designers, have a lot of insight into stuff like that. And his portfolio is really comprehensive. He's done a lot of work for a bunch of great organizations, and I think he could be a really valuable asset to our team. So I hope he comes back.
Sure. Good. Well, so what are we going to talk about until he does? One thing that having a designer around might, that we could talk about, because right now would be if we wanted to start making design changes in affect CSS, we have to resolve this old CSS issue.
Yeah.
And Jen, on occasion, I have made comments to the fact that we're kind of stuck, and you have said, "Oh, I thought we have this solution." And I mean, I think you and I maybe have identified something that we think would work well, but I think the stickiness is getting enough buy-in from other people. But that's my assessment. What is your assessment of where this is at? Are we?
Yeah, I think that we have a theoretical solution and we don't yet have a example of it. And so I think what we might need to do is solve one of our outlying CSS issues using the recommended approach and see if we can get core committers to review it, because I think they'll be sort of the final call on whether they think that kind of backwards compatibility is going to be both safe and sustainable. And I think without an example of like, here's a patch for you to review, it's really hard to get them to weigh in on that. So I think there are some next steps there for creating a patch against one of our outstanding CSS issues that uses that approach to see if it would work.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. It's like a way to possibly move this forward. I personally have just kind of moved on from it because I have been frustrated and not sure what to do next. So that's a plan of action that makes sense to me. So we just got to sort of, well, I don't know, is the solution to this separate from an individual fix, or do we? Because like, well, maybe can I ask this? Do you remember which? We have like 4 or 5 viable possible approaches, right? But I think you in particular had a preferred one, and I Do you remember which one it was?
I think it was with every core minor release, or even maybe once a year, we would add a new body class. And then when we introduce CSS between an initial version and a final version, we add the specific selector on it.
Right.
And we could have something that would indicate like that whatever version you installed at, and you would only get those selectors until that version you installed, and after that your site would not get any additional selectors. So if you installed at 121, you would only get CSS from 121 and before. If you installed at 122, you'd get CSS from 122 and before. And then that way it would allow us to keep our CSS selectors in the same style sheet and in the correct location. And when it gets to Backdrop 2, all we have to do is remove all of the version specific selectors, and it doesn't require a lot of work on in terms of getting the old stuff into the new
So
stuff.
there isn't really any infrastructure that has to be built out. We could literally just make a PR that includes a new selector.
Yeah, there is we have to add some kind of a variable for the version when you installed Backdrop, and I'm not sure if we have something like that already. But I was thinking it could be something we throw into system core, like it's not going to be used for anything else.
Sure.
And that would just be used for, determining the body classes that are getting output on any individual site. But I think that's the only thing we need to do that isn't adding this solution. And I don't know if that needs to be done in a separate issue or could be done as part of one of our solutions. But I think that if we include it in the pull request with one of our solutions, core developer will be able to review it there, and then we can say, here's the previous issue with the solution, and they can decide where they want to have the change committed.
Good plan. That all makes sense. Okay. Just went to check Twitter. He's back.
And where's it going?
We have a little echo. I'll go. Is that it? Is that how he asked us to say?
Just for reference, the issue for supplemental CSS selectors is issue number 4782. I'm going to drop that into the agenda. And
So
I think
go. We're not hearing you if you're talking.
Okay, I wasn't.
Oh, I hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, great to be here again.
Well, glad to have you back. Did you want to maybe introduce yourself quick?
Okay, well, my name is Gugu, and I'm a designer. I reached out to Backdrop CMS on Twitter. Okay, so I found out it was an open source project, and I wanted to contribute. So I reached out to Twitter and they gave me the other informations, the backlog on GitHub, where I went through several issues that were reported, over 2,000 issues. And also I asked how I could reach the design team. And I was told you meet once every 2 weeks, and then here I am. It's great to be here though, it's great to be here. I would love to know what Backdrop CMS is all about, and then how I can contribute also as a designer.
Yeah, we really suffer from a shortage of designers in the Backdrop community, so we're very glad to have you. We're mostly a developer-based community, and that does sometimes lead to getting stuck in terms of making progress on design or user experience improvements in the product. So we're really glad to have you, which is great. In terms of how you can contribute, I feel like getting your feedback in the issue queue, if you see something we're talking about and you have an idea for how to solve it, adding a comment is number one great, because that way we know that there's a designer in the conversation and it's not just a bunch of developers talking about what's easiest to implement, but someone thinking about how it's going to affect the product as a whole. And then if there are issues where we require specific designs for things, like what do we make this look like? It's a place where you could mock something up and post a screenshot, or even deliver a design file if we have developers who are looking for a design file to work on something. And so we haven't done a lot of that recently in terms of working on design, because we're I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years into having version 1 out, and there hasn't been a lot of design changes in that time. And so our next major version is planned to come out in 2025. So we have a couple of years to work on stuff between now and then that we'll get into 2025's release, which will be great. But we also have realized that we're pretty capable of making changes in the first version. It took us a while to figure that out because we have a commitment to not breaking people's sites who are already using the software. And Tim and I were just talking before you joined about solving an issue that is blocking some of our design changes. So if we can get that issue resolved, it'll open up the doors for making a lot of more improvements before 2025. So that's where we are right now. Does somebody else want to do a quick introduction of what Backdrop's all about?
Robert?
No?
Oh, gosh. I'll probably be wrong, but Backdrop evolved out of Drupal, and it's about building sites that have structure and relationships between the data. And that kind of distinguishes it from WordPress, but in a fairly, let's say, developer-friendly way, which distinguishes it from Drupal 8 and above. The stated goal of Backdrop is, and I hope I get this right, our commitment is to the site builders as opposed to developers. It's geared towards small business and nonprofits who don't have a lot of resources to throw into major redevelopments all the time and things like that. And if I can just throw in sort of my personal impression from having been involved about a year now. It's a pretty friendly developer community. I was welcomed in. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and people have been pretty gentle about, pointing them out and educating me. And so I've grown and from the experience, and therefore very much like working in this community.
Awesome. That's great. That's great.
Thanks, Robert, for sharing that. So Gogu on Twitter, Tim and I are usually people who manage that account. So when you're talking to people on Twitter, it's usually one of us. So hello, welcome to the meeting.
So was it you or Tim?
It was me this time,
Yeah.
but Tim was watching,
Wow.
so that if I got something wrong, he could have jumped
Great,
in with
great.
some more resources.
Awesome.
So yeah, and then in terms of the way our community works, we have a handful of people who can't always make these weekly meetings, which is why they're recorded and broadcast live. So if you want to watch it later, that's a resource for people. And then we have this meeting this hour, and then the next hour we have sort of a developer focused meeting where we can talk about issues that are more relevant for the non-designer part of the community. So when our weekly meetings first started, I think this was a design only meeting, and that was in the very early parts of Backdrop. And since then we realized that it would be great to have a place to talk about user experience issues specifically too, and so they're now included also, even though sometimes that's about language terminology, how to explain things, and maybe not what something looks like on a page. For me, they're sort of the same. So having the one place to talk about both of them together has been pretty valuable for us.
Great.
So I hope that's helpful. I don't know if there was anything that you looked at in your initial review of the software or the issues that stuck out to you as something you wanted specifically discussion on, or if you're just hoping to join this first meeting to get in touch with the design community, or what your goals were here. But because we don't have a lot on the agenda, we're happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, so I think first off, I actually joined the meeting so I would get to know the design team. And then I know I said some stuff about the identity system, that's getting to know your design system. And also, I was hoping to see a documentation on your brand, like the design, yeah, exactly. So I couldn't really find that resource on the website. And I don't know if you can point me to something, to a document I can check to see the brand guidelines, the design system. I think that would be a very good place for me to start.
Okay, so we have
Okay.
two sort of distinct parts to our brand. There's Backdrop CMS, the organization, the community, the like group that manages everything, and we have our own design for like our website, our logo, all of that stuff. And then there is the brand and identity for the product, which is a little bit different. So the product is something that's owned by the organization, but it doesn't look like the website, for example, right? Like it should be a different piece of software. And so I shared a link in the chat that's the press kit for the brand. So this explains like the logo and the name and the stuff like that. And that often affects the public facing website. But for the product itself, we sort of have some other resources. We have what's it called? The style guide.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find that. And the style guide applies to two different things. One of them is the front end, the public facing theme that you see when you are using Backdrop the software. And then we have another one that applies to the back end sort of administrative interface. And so we have sort of a very different feel between when you're viewing a page on your site and when you're editing a page on your site. And so they have two different style guides. And so we have one guide for what the front end style should look like and one guide for what the back end should look like. And in order to visualize those, we have a module that you install on your website, and you say, show me all the visual elements in a particular theme. And so the theme is what determines what the front or back looks like. And so we like to use a style guide to help us make sure we've implemented everything correctly in the theme. So there's like a whole bunch of different pieces. We do not have a cohesive document that explains the style guide. But I think we might have something from when we were developing early on that could be useful. So I'm going to see if I can pull that. I think it's in the contrib group.
That would be wonderful.
Ops, maybe. Here we go. Okay. So we have in the Backdrop Ops group this style guide page, and this is what we were using for our administrative interface. And there's a page there at GitHub.io.
On Git.
Yeah, that'll let you view the way we hoped to have everything displayed. So we had a designer work on this version of our style guide, and then we set all our developers to go and make the site look like it. And so I'm not sure we're 100% of the way there, but we're pretty close. We've got most of it included in the administration. And then I wonder if we have one of these for basis.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So the dragon is actually the mascot.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Awesome.
and here is the issue, and this might be way too much detail for you, but I'm dropping a link into the chat that is the issue where we added the new front end theme to Backdrop Core. So when we originally released Backdrop, it looked exactly like Drupal, and it took us a while to sort out our own identity and come up with our own theme. There's a bunch of comments in here from the community and the developer who worked on that theme about the various progress they've been making and changes and stuff there. So that might be a lot of reading for you, but it does sort of include what our goals were and how those were arrived at. So again, not the best documentation, but at least a public history of how we got to where we are.
Awesome. I think I'm going to consume that tonight.
Okay.
I'll go through it tonight because it's evening over here. Oh, I think I forgot to mention, I'm in Nigeria, Africa.
I was going to ask. Thank you. So this is probably an inconvenient time for you.
Just looking at the press kit, sorry to say, it brings to mind this this program on Windows, Sticky Notes. I don't know, are you on Windows or you're on Mac? I'm on Mac right now.
Sticky
I'm on a
Notes
Mac
stole
right
our
now.
logo. We actually
Yeah,
have
I
a
think-
trademark for the logo, and our lawyer
Okay.
said that if we wanted to go after Microsoft, we could, but I think that would not be a wise idea. So we're just gonna let them have.
So what do you think?
I mean, Microsoft is gonna take whatever they want from whoever they want to take it from. So I'm not sure there's much we can do.
Okay. So we're not looking at a redesign.
We haven't considered a redesign of the logo. I think I don't think that people are going to get Backdrop and Sticky Notes confused with each other. I think it would be a much more concerning issue if they came out with like a website development tool and used the same logo. So yeah, we haven't really discussed it.
Okay.
I think
Because
we have. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
I was going to say we found one or two other logos that are also pretty similar, but none of them really, are like Jen says, they're not really confusing because they're not in our space.
Okay.
It's doubly funny because the person who designed our logo is now working for a company that got absorbed by Microsoft. So he's really mad that his company stole his logo from us. He's like, how is this happening?
Crazy. Wow.
I don't know, but yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I'm actually looking at the press kit and I've opened the last link you sent to. Okay.
So we have essentially two designs on Backdrop the software right now. One is the front end theme, which is called Basis, and that last issue is about Basis. And one is the back end theme, which is called 7. And the previous links on the style guide are about 7. So they're a little different sources of information, but what those themes are.
I'll share my screen for a minute, just to, I think this is probably all clear, but just to be absolutely clear, this is a Backdrop site, right? And this is the default sort of design theme, front end theme for Backdrop. That is Basis. We have the back end theme is the theme that all the administrative pages, right? That's 7. This is also a theme. It's a separate theme from the front end theme. And those pretty much every site is running with 2 themes running at any given time. So, and then of course, this all differs from the theme that we use on our actual website. This is the board theme, which we actually use on backdrop.org.
And anyone a backdrop site can, of course, choose any other theme or design their
Right.
own as they want to. But at that point, sort of out of our hands in terms of what they're going to do with their own design. But we do like to make sure that we have sort of some consistent patterns. So if they do something like change their administrative theme, we're going to make sure buttons are all properly buttons and links are links, and we have some common elements that will get some style from our software in addition to the style that any theme chooses to add on top of it. So we're trying to make sort of a good starting point for anyone to build on top of. So that's true for the front end also, but
So it would seem to me that a pressing question in a moment like this is either from our end, what are you interested in working on? Because there's a whole different wide range of design related things, or vice versa. You could be asking us, what are our priorities? And I'm not sure what our priorities would be. I think we all have our own things that we would consider to be design priorities. But I don't know, Jen, do you have any sense of what? I mean, there have been some little things like designing, I mean, this is not a current one, but like for a long time, designing a banner for us was a big thing. And I think, I don't remember if we resolved that or not, but occasionally we come up with those extraneous things that are sort of separate from the product. But I don't know right now, like I can come up with 20 ideas of things we'd need help on. It's not that we don't have things to do. The difficulty is like, what would we say is the most important? Or
yeah. I think that same rule sort of applies to all of contribution to open source, where like we don't have a staff, we don't have anyone paid to do specific things. And so we rely on people coming in and saying, hey, I really want to help you with X. And, I bring my own sense of priorities, and Tim brings his, and Robert brings his, and we all sort of meet somewhere in the middle with like, oh, I want to help Robert work on this interface improvement, and then we'll collaborate and get stuff done. And I think that same thing happens in design. We have periods where we have fantastic designers show up and say, hey, I want to help with these 18 things. Then we make a whole bunch of progress on design, and then they get hired by a different company or something and disappear. And we understand that people have the time that they have, and they want to work on the things they want to work on. And we are very appreciative of that, whether they're designers or developers. In general, I think, I have my set of priorities. I don't know if they're the priorities, but because we have a product that's out there in front of people, I'm very much sort of thinking about people who are using it today and what do they need. But I think that we also have a bunch of people, and Tim might be one of these people, who are looking at like, well, what do we want it to be in the future, and what do we want Backdrop 2 to look like, and how, do we need something new, right? Rather than continuing to improve on the thing we already have, maybe we need a new theme, maybe we need, and I don't have that sort of same kind of future vision. And I think both of those things are important to the project. So, if someone wants to work on the new stuff, that's great. If someone works with the old stuff, that's also great. So yeah, trying to figure out where you want to contribute. I think it's, what you want is equally as important to what we want. Because if we want something and you don't want to work on it, that's not going to get done. So yeah.
That's true. Very true. So like I said earlier, I was looking at the identity, and then I said identity, then the website, and then the software. So since I've gotten the style guide, so from there I'm going to advance the website. That's the landing page of the product, and then from there we advance to the software.
Okay. So we have a dedicated issue queue for the website. I'm just going to send this to you also, because a lot of people have also expressed, we've had sort of the same design on our website for a while, and a lot of people are wondering if that's going to change anytime soon. We did recently make a few minor changes to the homepage, but all of the changes we've made recently have sort of been like, we need something. How do we fit it in what we already have? There haven't sort of been a holistic review to the website itself. So if you want to look through here, you can see this is anyone who finds any problem with the website, they can create an issue on here. I'm not sure they're labeled as nicely as the ones for Backdrop Core, like we don't have a design labeling here. But we did have one specifically for the homepage. There's also a brand update question that would be really relevant for you. I'm going to drop that link in here.
I'm just quickly sharing the screen. So the
Okay.
GitHub issue, this is the GitHub issue queue of backdrop.org. So we have an issue queue right for the product. This one is specifically for backdrop.org. And so this would be a really good way for you to communicate with the community if, for example, your goal was to work on backdrop.org, right, to make that look better. And as Jen said earlier, if you indicate to us what your interest is, we'll do everything we can to help you, support you, find, either find issues or get answers to your questions or whatever.
That'd be awesome. So how do we communicate closer? Because I think I didn't know about you prior to now. I didn't know about you. I didn't know about Jane. I only got information from the Twitter handle, which
Sure.
I just found out that Jane was the one handling it as at that time. So how do we have a free communication in case I have questions and issues to ask?
So our community
right.
has a live chat. Yeah, called Zulip, which is probably the best way to the fastest way to get responses from people.
I heard of Zulip for the very first time when you sent that link.
Okay. Well, there's conversation happening here. This is my Zulip window. And there's conversation happening here almost 24 hours a day. We have some very active members in Europe and in Australia. So there are people like, this is probably not, as I said earlier, a convenient time for you, but we have people at different time zones. I also am often working late at night, like at 3 a.m. So if you're active on Zulip, you can talk to people in real time, almost 24 hours a day. But we also have, of course, the issue queue, and then we have our weekly meetings. And I have been trying to do, I don't know if that would be Nigeria. What is equivalent of like a European time zone are you in? Are you similar to Central?
GMT +1.
What?
GMT +1. That's Nigerian time.
Okay.
This is 9:48 p.m.
So
now.
Yeah. Okay. This isn't so bad for you. It's not as bad as it could be. It could be 3 a.m. It could be 3 a.m. 9. We have so you're really the same time zone. We have a couple of participants that join us from the UK or Germany frequently during this time zone as well. So, anyways, I'll stop sharing. There's not much to look at, but really, Zulip is if you're comfortable with it, is a really good real-time communication platform. Twitter is really not where you want to get answers to questions if you're dealing with us regularly. If you, for the broad community, if they have a quick question, Twitter is fine. But if you're in the middle of a project, you really want to come to, either I think Zulip or talk with us in the issue queue. And there are some people who prefer the issue queue a lot more and spend more time there. A lot of us spend a lot of time in Zulip or both.
Okay. Let me sign into Zulip. We're just going to see how it really works.
Sure.
I think it's very much like Slack.
It is, yeah. The UI has some peculiarities, which you love or you hate. We'll let you decide that for yourself. But it's open source, which is one of the reasons we use it.
Okay, I get it.
Right. It's open source, and we have a free sort of hosted account. So we don't have to pay anything and we get sort of unlimited data. Where, yeah. And we have an infrastructure channel, if you get into this, that might be the good place for have design discuss. If we're talking about the website, it's just a little smaller audience, but.
And there's a handful of people who can help build and design or build and deploy changes for Backup CMS. Robert is one of those people that can help with those, as well as myself. Tim, Peter, Nate, there's like a handful of people. So once we have something ready to go, using the infrastructure channel is a great way to ping someone to get it pushed out.
Right.
Thank you.
Jen mentioned that you had expressed an interest in usability issues as well, like UX issues. So
yes.
If I threw out this very broad question, like design the product, design the website, or sort of product usability issues, is there one of those three categories that sounds more interesting to you, or do you need to do more research?
Usability, product. Come again, I didn't get you clearly.
Well, the three that I described were either the design of the product, the usability, the UX, more which is a lot of overlap, I understand, but or like the website, the backdrop, the organization, the branding, and the website for our organization. Are you more interested in the product, or like frankly, I think you could be more creative in terms of design on the backdrop.org. Wouldn't you agree, Jen?
Yeah.
There's sort of more room for like doing pure design there. The product is more technical, and there's going to be a lot more restrictions on sort of what can and can't be done to the product. But to our regular website, there's a lot more flexibility there because.
Yeah.
And so,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So if I understand you correctly, what you're trying to say is I can be very creative working on the website, down on the software, right?
I think more so on backdrop.org, right, than on backdrop the product.
Yes, that's the website. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when I started out my design career, I started out as a brand identity designer.
Mm-hmm.
And then after about 4 or 5 years, I started specializing in interaction. I picked up interaction design, and after about 2 years, I specialize in interaction. And I'm actually working on a project for a company here in Nigeria. They're about to launch. I'm building more like a dashboard for their web app, and the UI and the UX also for their mobile app. So, and to do all that, we have to build a website. We have to design a website. So my experience revolves around the life cycle of a product, from identity down to the website and to the software itself. Not coding, I'm not a developer. What I do is UI, but to get a very good UI, I also do UX.
Sure.
Get to understand the user, what they want, how they want it, so that I can get a good interface. So because of time, what I would do, or because initially what I was saying on Twitter was work on the identity, then the website before the software. But as it is, we can actually work not on the 3 at once, but we can go with the 2 at once, since the website, some of the elements from the website will be reflecting on the software, because I believe backdrop organization and backdrop the product in the longer run is one.
Sure.
Yes, that's what I think.
Sure.
I need to confirm from you, but the website, and then there are some key elements on the website that will be reflecting on the software itself. So we can actually work more like agile on it. Since I feel backdrop is dynamic, so we can have elements from the website on the software itself. So, but I think as we progress, I'll find my space. I'll find my space if it's going to be on the web or on the software. But I feel I can fit in very well in both the web and the software.
I think it might be best to let you start on the website since that seems where your interests are peaked. But you might find people specifically asking you questions. If we get stuck on something in the interface in the product, we might be like, hey, do you have any feelings on this? And hopefully if you do have feelings, you'll be able to answer those questions. But
that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I think the website is cool. Start from there and then we progress.
Great. Well, we are sort of
I
running
must say,
up
I'm really excited to be here.
Okay.
We're excited you're here too.
We are, and we want to work with, with your level, your interests and your level of availability. So you need to communicate to us how much you want to do and what areas you want to work in, and then we can help point you. And, we don't have a pressing need, I think, to completely redesign our website. But if that was something you said to us that you really felt like you could contribute to, we'd be open to that. But I think maybe a better start would be to just look at some individual elements or to sort of audit our existing site and look for areas where you think that maybe it needs some improvement. But if in the process of doing that, you say, gee, I'd like to start from scratch, then I think you need to tell us. And
Hello, can you hear me?
We lost you for
the last thing I heard was my availability, right? Yes, I think the last thing I heard was my availability. How much am I willing to contribute, right?
Well, I wasn't
correct?
I wasn't so much asking you right now, but telling you that you need to communicate that to us so that we can sort of help you.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. That's fine.
So there's no wrong answer to that question, right? If it could be very little, and then we'll try to respect that, or it could be a lot. And you need to tell us how much time you have and you want to spend. So, but again, you don't have to tell us that right now. Did you freeze again? Nope, you're there. Okay.
We are right up against the end of our time for the design meeting. So I'm going to recommend that we wrap this up and start preparing for the developer meeting. But yeah, it was so great to have you join us. Hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, it's my job
to get a headset before we meet again.
Well, I'm going to stop the live stream.